Welcome, y'all! There he is. This is the Pregame Engineer Tailgate Mayor Racing Podcast, episode number 22 for Thursday, October 22nd, 2015. I am Tailgate Mayor Rusty Wallace, and kicking it kind of old school here, maybe our post-primitive days with Pregame Engineer Andrew Shoren. What's happening, my man?
Yeah, we're back trying to do this thing over the internet, and if anybody's been watching the Periscope and the pre-show, we've had our fair shares of trouble trying to figure it back out, because I think we've done an unprecedented 4 of the last 6 in person, whether we were at the racetrack or at your house, something like that.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird to be back in the, like I said, post-primitive, so we're not like we're on our laptops staring at each other with no microphones or anything like that back like I did in Washington, D.C., but I do have the mixer at least, so I'm going to play all of our sound effects and a couple new ones for some new segments we have. Yeah, it'll be funny. So we've got no producer today because she's not in, or we're not all sitting in the same room, but she is tweeting out, and she's on the Periscope and giving us all that, so appreciate you once again, Serena, for doing that for us. That brings us to what you're drinking, man.
Well, I have reverted to some of my old ways. I've got some Jim Beam White Label and tonic, but I dressed it up a little bit with some cherry juice and some grapefruit bitters.
Interesting. Now, that sounds like a drink that I've heard of before. What is that? Or similar to?
I don't know. I just made it up. I just had the stuff, and I like it, and I mixed it in the glass, and it's nice. The cherry juice adds, and the tonic adds just a little bit of sweetness to go with the bitterness of the bitters.
Okay, I got you.
Hence, it's called bitters.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I just finished up. Oh, whoa, my microphone. There we go. All right, that's better. I just finished up the Guinness Nitro IPA here that we've here for all the Periscopers. We do have this thing on Periscope, by the way, and Sherman's got his camera pointed right at his laptop there, and you also see his multiple TVs in the background. But I got that Guinness Nitro IPA that I think we've talked about on the podcast before. That's pretty tasty, and it's cool to have an IPA on Nitro, so I'm happy about that. But on deck, look at this. I've got a, it's a Hawks and, this is throwback right here if there ever was. This is the Atlanta Thrashers official glass right here with Jim Beam Black Label and Coke Zero this week.
We had a glitch, y'all. Rusty was telling me about his drink, and the thing I like about his drink is not so much what the content of the fluid is, but the throwback Thrashers cup that he's using. And I always want to spit some venom at the Atlanta Spirit or whoever it was.
Yeah, Atlanta Spirit Group.
I'd be a hockey fan if we still had a hockey team. Okay, that's all there is to it.
Yeah, and I had partial season tickets, and we went to a ton of games. Go over to the CNN Center beforehand, get big beers, and when I'm talking big, we're talking buckets. These things, 44-ounce beers that you fill with like Newcastle or 420 or some Sweetwater 420 that we.
Oh yeah, I got a 32-ounce beer my first time there because nobody told me, and I sat down with my sandwich, and actually I think I got a Moe's burrito, and I had my 32-ounce beer, which to me that's a pretty big beer. And everybody at the table had a 44-ounce beer, and they're like, "Oh, isn't that cute?"
Yeah, he had the cute beer.
Jerks! You didn't tell me about the super secret half a gallon of beer cup.
Yeah, hopefully this thing's worth this will be worth $1 million one day, that's for sure. But I won't need it because the podcast will be bringing us in billions. So who needs that? So I'll be holding on to this cup for a long time.
For sure. Wow, we managed to get some hockey in there. That's good product placement there.
Yeah, it is. I think that's the first and last time we'll talk about hockey unless we bring another Thrashers thing in. You know what? I need to start just wearing Thrashers gear on here so the folks on the Periscope and everywhere else can see all my crazy Thrashers stuff. Because I've got it all.
I mean, if I hadn't been living in way down deep south, don't really want to talk about it, Georgia, I would probably have some Thrashers gear of my own because I would have ridden right there with you.
Yeah. So we've got a shout-out for today. That's our shout out. So our shout out for the day, Laura is a new follower on the PETM podcast. It's at Laura24fan. Guess who she's a fan of?
I'm pretty sure she's a fan of Jeff Gordon, if I had to guess. She's
Gordon.
Part of the hashtag NASCAR Followback Nation. We appreciate you being on board. I think we had a little bit of a brief interaction there. Cheers. Hope you're having a nice evening here on a Thursday night.
Yeah, I want to start asking these 24 fans if who she's rooting for next year. Is she going with Chase Elliott? Is she switching it around, or is there going to be a few years in purgatory where you're just kind of searching for that next driver?
Well, I thought it was ironic. I did see some interaction on Twitter where somebody with 24 in their handle was asking a NASCAR reporter, who they should follow because they didn't at all want to be associated with Chase Elliott. And I'm like, it's kind of an interesting stance to take if you're a 24 fan. I would totally get it if you were a Ty Dillon fan, for instance.
Yeah. I don't know why you would love the 24 and hate the new 24. I don't get it. But okay.
Yeah, I mean, if the kid comes out of the gate and wins races, don't be surprised if Dale Jr. stops winning most popular driver awards. FYI, his Chase's dad kind of did that before Junior did.
Yeah, he pulls a lot of weight. So we do have a mistake that we made, so I guess we got to bring it up. Funny part is
Still in bad shape.
Yeah. You hit the. By the way, you hit the laptop on that, so the entire screen shook for me. No, it's not a problem. But when I'm looking to
hit something,
me and Sherwin are sharing video on this thing, and if you're on the Periscope, you can see us on his laptop. But it was really cool because when the car crash sound happened, it looked like there was a car crash going on in your house.
I wish I could claim that it was intentional, but I really just wanted to shake my hands about and make a face, and I whacked the table.
It was perfect.
So, and I'll talk in the third person here. Sherwin continues to not know the difference between 2011 and 2012. I keep staring Rusty down this path of mixing those 2 years up chase wise, and
they'll blur a little bit.
I mix in some 2011. I mix in some 2012. It just keeps. I need to do some meditating on the difference between those 2 years.
Well, we did drink a lot of beer those 2 years, as is the case with just about every year. But so you never.
Yeah.
What can you say?
And then, so there's one more piece of this, and we're going to go to a really heartfelt place here, y'all. And this is why I think 2012 and 2011 kind of get scrambled in my brain a little bit because we had, and this is the first podcast that we'll have had that falls, in the same week that we had a tragic event, or I should say a friend of ours had a tragic event. And on that token, I've got a beverage that I need to sip in remembrance of our best friend, roommate, corner mate, tailgate mate, racing travel mate, Chris Cantus.
That's right. So Sherwin's going to go get a little drink we've been aging for now 3 years coming up on it.
Got a little bit of beverage. I put a couple of cubes in. I'm going to have a sip here for him.
And I'm going to raise my glass as well. We said we'd do an episode in the off-season, and I know we will, a dedication episode of some sort, but there's two of us right here. If he was still with us, there would be three of us for sure, and he would bring...
Oh, this podcast would be a three-headed monster, no doubt.
Yeah, and he would bring the funny. If we're not bringing the funny, he'd bring the funny, but we lost him 3 years ago. He's about my age exactly, so it's kind of scary and all that stuff. But we'll talk about that. But yeah, it was October 24th, so 2 days from now will be 3-year anniversary of 2012 that we lost our dear friend Chris Cantus. But we're moving along and doing as much remembrance and dedication as we can. Oh,
for sure, and we never miss an opportunity to appreciate him. And like you hear, if you're a fan of comedy, you'll hear that people that are funny and creative oftentimes are tortured souls. And obviously that's what he was, but he was certainly one of our best friends, and we had a great time when we were with him, sure.
That's for sure.
Tip glasses.
Cheers, man. Yeah, I'll bring it up again.
Antis.
Danger. And we'll explain that one day, too. So, some sponsor news coming out of this week I thought was pretty cool. We have 3 different things to talk about here. Monster Energy is going to be Kurt Busch's primary Cup ride starting next year. Is that right?
Yeah, they're actually going to be like the whole car sponsor for, I think, 3 races. But for 18 races, they're going to be the hood with Haas automation on the rear quarter panel. And then the remaining races, they'll be on the rear quarter panel.
Now, is that a... Did he just straight up steal that from his brother? What happened?
Well, that's what I want to know. I've been tweeting like crazy trying to figure that out because JGR hadn't made an announcement about the 54 in the Xfinity series. And I was very curious about that. And I even tweeted out to Bob Pockris, who writes for ESPN, and he didn't respond, which I'm sure he gets a billion tweets. But
right.
I asked him, I said, what's the precedent for brothers stealing sponsorship from each other? And I wrote stealing in air quotes because, or in quotation on Twitter, because, I mean, he didn't really steal it. That's all the business thing that goes on. The drivers they're not involved so much other than being the face of the sponsor. And I said as much nepotism and familial involvement as there's been in this sport, and I think that's good. I don't say that with any negative aspect. NASCAR is absolutely a family sport. I got to believe there's been brothers in the past that have swapped or stolen sponsors.
Yeah, with the air quotes there. Terry and Bobby come to mind as possibilities, but I don't know when that would have happened. That would have been the latest era, probably, of that. I don't know. Good question. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you would think that it would have to be 2 brothers that were both on a similar level of competition for it to happen. Kyle and Kurt are both top tier drivers. There haven't been a lot of brothers that you could say that about. There's been a lot of brothers compete, but there's not been a lot of brothers that were both basically playing the same space in terms of how competitive they are on the racetrack.
Yeah, and Darrell and Michael Waltrip were a bit too far apart for probably that to happen.
Michael Waltrip, he went like 468 races before he won a Cup race.
That's true. So one thing, it's funny, Sherwin sent me his show notes here, and so I'm reading through some of the stuff as we're talking here, but you said the Monster Girls.
Good grief. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to deny the fact that I'm male and I like women. At first, I didn't see the car, and there was a whole bunch of tweets that came in about that. It's like...
What car?
It's not a bad deal to have Monster Energy as your sponsor. You get to go to some neat things like extreme sports, and I think it's a really cool thing. They're a major player in NASCAR. I think what that's really tells you, the underlying thing that tells you is Monster Energy is making money, and they're making a bunch of it. And they think NASCAR is the next great place for them to expand, and that's why they're going to be on the face of a Cup car.
Yeah, and we're looking at I think they had 3 Monster Girls there who, they were all 10s, of course, and then me and Sherwin and some buddies are emailing back and forth trying to figure out who's the best looking, and no, her knees are too sharp and her elbows are too long or whatever.
Just
having our fun.
Yeah, critiquing in a space that requires or needs no critique.
So Clint Boyer over to Harry Scott and Peak has announced that they're going to follow.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing about that is Clint has had this relationship with Peak ever since being with Michael Waltrip. But if you recall, Danica Patrick also has a relationship with Peak. And obviously we hope that continues. But now that they'll both be in the Chevrolet fold, it makes even more sense. And I think that's part of why you're seeing this, especially when Clint finishes up next year in the 51 or the 52 or 46 or whichever car he ends up in with Harry Scott. The peak sponsorship will be solely housed within SHR, Stewart Haas Racing.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I still, I don't know how to say it. I like Clint Boyer. I like him a lot. We talk about it a lot.
Love Clint Boyer.
The wave parties and everything. So seeing him having success and seeing him having success on the track and in the sponsorship arena, I like it just so he can stay in a car and stay in a competitive car, hopefully.
I think they will. I think all signs say that he'll be the 5th SHR car, which means he'll be driving the same chassis as Kevin Harvick and Tony Stewart, Danica Patrick and Kurt Busch. And I think, we all think that it's a mental thing for Tony, trying to just get this last year, the Survivor Tour, finished up. But I mean, let's not overlook the fact that Danica's had some good runs. It's not, those cars are good.
Yeah.
They're not the same. Harry Scott is going to be better with Clint Boyer driving one of their cars.
For sure.
Just like they were better when Kurt Busch was driving their only car.
Yeah.
And is basically the reason why they now have 2.
And they had a win with Kurt Busch, right?
They had a near miss at Sonoma.
Okay.
They had a rear end park brake, and Kurt dang near still won the race.
And lastly, on the sponsorship news, or not necessarily sponsorship, but maybe car replacement, you wrote Little Gator. That's funny. Justin Allgaier set to fill the JRM number 7 that Regan Smith's getting out of.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about this is so Clint's coming into Harry Scott, somebody's got to go, right? And that's Justin. And the thing about Justin going from the Harry Scott car to the JRM Xfinity number 7 is, and this is I'm not trying to put Harry Scott down at all, but this is not necessarily a demotion because Justin's going to a good car that's consistently won races. I still have no idea why Regan Smith is not an option for them in that car. Maybe it's his age and sponsorship, etc. Justin's had Brandt, kind of on his side from the beginning, and if you've been paying attention to NASCAR the last 15, 20 years, you know that if somebody has a corporate backing, they're going to get a leg up regardless of their skills behind the wheel. Paul Menard, love you, buddy. You want to race at Indy? Cool. Daddy got money.
Yep. Daddy's money, as we say. I think that rounds out the news for this week, which brings us to a pretty sore spot for me, which is that you had picked last week Joey Logano. I had picked Matt Kenseth. And with the last, I guess, penultimate restart that we had,
right?
Matt Kenseth takes it out to the lead. I'm sitting pretty. I'm happy. Joey Logano's back there, but it looked like it was weird. I think Joey was better on the medium run, and Kenseth was better on the short run there. And his crew chief said he was better on the long run, but I'm not sure that was going to happen either. But of course, what happened, and Joey's with about 8 laps to go. Joey's trying to pass. He gets denied once, gets denied twice, and then essentially just says, here I am, blam, and takes out I think it was the left rear, because he was going bottom side of Matt Kenseth, and Kenseth spins out, and by consequence, Kenseth is now last place in the standings. Joey Logano takes the win. I was texting cuss words to Sherwin, but it wasn't because I was upset with the situation. I was upset because his pick just crashed my pick for the win.
I mean, did we nail it or what?
I think we should at least pat ourselves on the back.
Yeah.
For having what? There, I'll do it in reality.
Yeah, I mean, we nailed it.
Yeah,
we both knew which cars were going to be the fastest, and then they ended up in an awkward situation on the track.
Yeah.
I benefited from it. I'd have been sending you the same cuss words had it been the other way around.
Right.
And I firmly believe that had it been the other way around, it would have ended the same way. We would just see the 20 in victory lane and the 22 finish in 22nd or whatever Kenseth finished.
Yeah. Sherwin was kind of texting me like, you okay, dude? I mean, I'm like, I'm perfectly fine with everything that happened. Like, everything that happened was exactly as it should have. That's racing. And I was just upset that my pick got spun out, especially when it was by his pick, and especially because his pick won because we're so competitive. But going to the situation itself, Matt Kenseth, I think he can kind of, if he looks back on it, he can act mad and act upset. But tell me what should have happened differently. Kenseth is blocking the whole time, which he should be doing, by the way. He should be blocking. Right. Because there's 8 laps to go. He's low in the standings, and he needs a win. Joey Logano doesn't need the win because Joey's already in from last week's win.
His sponsor needs to win.
Oh, yeah. I'm just talking about in terms of championship or whatever.
Yeah.
So
well, I think,
he's blocking.
Yeah, sorry to keep cutting you off.
Oh, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
Kenseth needs to win to preserve his opportunity to compete for the championship. Mm-hmm. Joey deserves to be able to compete for his sponsor and his team, and those competitive juices interacted. Or wow, that was not really the best way to say that. But those competitive spirits interacted on the racetrack, and I can't imagine if you go back and watch that, kind of like in football where they go back, on Monday morning, the quarterback comes in and he watches every play and he watches it, from the film room view, which, is kind of behind them, where they get to see all the receivers go. They get to see who blocked what the running backs did, and what his, vision probably should have been. If Kenseth watches it from that view, he's got to know that's part of it. And I think I texted you with like maybe 18 or 15 to go, because I think the penultimate restart was with 30 to go. Between 25 and 30 to go.
Something like that.
We knew it was a final run kind of thing. And I said, well, I texted you, Joey's showing a lot of patience there, because Kenseth ran him up against the wall and Joey just lifted.
Yeah, he knew he had the time and he knew he had the faster car.
And then you see, what you talked about with Kenseth having a short run car, he was able to get away at that point. Mm-hmm. And then
by the way, I thought that Joey had eaten it up like Jeff Gordon does sometimes, and I thought I was home free.
Jeff?
Yeah.
It's so funny to me every time I run into a fan that's like, was a fan of Gordon from the 90s and talk about how well he managed his tires. And I'm like, that's kind of funny, because our nickname for Jeff is Tire Roasting Jeff.
Oh, yeah. Roasting the tires just over an open flame.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it ended up being a great moment for NASCAR. Probably would have been a better moment overall for all fans if the roles had been reversed. Let's be honest with you. It would have been a better moment for NASCAR if that 20 car actually had the number 4 on the door. Mm-hmm. Because that would have been the one that really drove controversy. And I'm not wishing, for all you Harvick fans, I'm not wishing for Harvick to get spun out, but you do know that if Joey and Harvick are to get into it, that's going to drive more angst and attention than the 20 and the 22 getting together.
Yeah.
Especially since, Joey used to drive that 20 car. It's not like he's trying to wreck it.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I don't think Matt Kenseth did anything wrong, and I don't think Joey did anything wrong based on the cars that they had and the way they were driving. I don't think anything wrong happened. I enjoyed what happened. I got excited in a way that was, cussing and screaming and pointing to the TV, but it was an exciting part of the race, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely an bleep moment.
Yeah.
And I think, I come down really hard on Brian France a lot because I want him to be better. I need him to make better decisions. But he said it best, and I'm going to paraphrase it in some really dumb language. They both NASCAR'd.
Yeah.
They both NASCAR'd, and NASCAR happened.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's NASCAR.
And whether it's contrived or whatever, I mean, that now it is what it is. It is the chase and the way that it's set up now, and that worked really well. I have more strong opinions about having one race to rule them all at the end. Like
one ring to bind them.
yeah, Lord of the Rings stuff, But these three race deals, it's producing the drama and the interest and the finishes like this that, maybe they hit something right there.
Well, I think what you're going to see, and what we've seen so far, whether or not it was accident or not, is that people in this country, particularly, and I don't know how much outside the boundaries people are able to watch online content, that sort of thing. I hope it's a lot. I hope they have as much access as they want. But people love college football on Saturday. They love NFL football on Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, all the nights if they played NFL football. But NASCAR's ratings are fairly decent, even with the baseball being kind of fun this year. And I say it's kind of fun this year because I'm paying attention, and the Braves are long gone. The Braves dang near lost 100 games, and I'm still paying attention to the baseball games, which to me says it must be a little bit more exciting than it normally is because I don't really care who wins, but I'm watching it and I'm picking a side and I'm rooting, and amongst all of that, NASCAR's still drawing pretty decent ratings.
Yeah.
So I mean, as much as I didn't necessarily like what the chase is or this bracketed deal that is very stick and ball, on the flip side, and we didn't even put this in the show sheet, but the charter thing, we'll talk about that when we have more information about what it's going to be, but it's a more stick and ball look to the way owners and teams work and who gets in the race. But I think they did okay. I think they did okay. I think they did what they wanted to do, whether we like it or not. The plate race is going to determine the 3-race segment. That's probably that's just us about plate racing. It's almost like maybe it's an exhibition. You run a plate race, but does it, like, if it's for all the marbles, like what Kenseth gets wrecked on the last lap, like as the leader or something? Woo! That's going to be people are going to be talking about it though, and that's what NASCAR wants.
That's true. So before we get over to plate racing, do you think that Joey has a target on his back now? Say that Kenseth doesn't make it, because Kenseth's in last. He essentially needs to win at, of all places, Talladega, which is, a roll of the dice or whatever. But say Joey doesn't, or that Kenseth doesn't make it. You think Joey's got a target on his back? Kenseth might not give him room the next time he needs it, or something like that? Or do you think Kenseth understands that this is a racing deal? I think Kenseth has to understand. I think if you go after somebody for a championship, I think that's rough. And I think Kenseth is smart enough to know that. But I don't know. These guys are racers.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because we've seen a mix of both. We've seen because NASCAR is so willing to stick a microphone, or to encourage the media to stick a microphone in their competitors' faces immediately after they've faced some pretty significant adversity. I think you're going to hear extreme opinions there, but I don't know. I don't know to what advantage it is for Kenseth to be thinking about how he's going to pay Joey Logano back, and if he's going to maybe try to put him out of the chase or whatever if he ends up not qualifying for the next round after Talladega. We haven't seen that behavior out of Kenseth. Mm-hmm. There are some drivers we have seen that out of, particularly Jeff Gordon. Mm-hmm. But he's not done it. It doesn't appear to be all that intentional in a lot of ways. Yeah, I think Kenseth fans would probably punch me in the face for saying that. If you remember back in 2006 when Kenseth dumped Jeff at Bristol, and Jeff waited until Chicagoland in the chase to dump Kenseth because Kenseth it was a very similar move to what we saw last weekend with Joey, in that they both kind of wanted to run the same line, and Jeff could have lifted and he just didn't. Yeah. And Kenseth went around and didn't have a good finish. We haven't really seen Kenseth do much of that kind of stuff. He did a few years ago at Martinsville when he felt like he got boogered up by somebody, and I can't remember who, and he just didn't lift going in the corner. I think it was at Martinsville. He's like, well, if you're going to do that to me, you're not going to win. Blam! And hit like 3 cars.
Yeah.
But in general, I don't think Kenseth, after he has a chance to sober up from the adrenaline, I just don't see him as a guy that's going to be out there hunting that 22 down, regardless.
No, I don't think so either. I think the only time you're going to see maybe what we'll call retaliation or comeuppance or whatever is going to be if they're running the exact opposite. That Kenseth is running 2, Joey's running 1. Whether or not Joey needs it or whatever, Kenseth isn't going to relent. He's going to go after the win, spin him out if he has to. He won't show any further restraint or anything. But in the same light that we said this race was exactly everybody did the right thing, in that race, I think in this hypothetical race we're talking about, I think everybody will have done the right thing again. So I don't know if that's retaliation at that point or just racing. So yeah, I don't foresee anything happening from it. And like you said, the guys get a mic in their face. Shoot, me and you have raced against each other at the local little indoor tracks, and if you want to interview me right after something, I will cuss this guy out sitting across the camera from me.
No kidding.
But not mean any of it, of course. Just, I can't believe that bleepity bleepity bleep did bleepity bleep. I'll kill him. But not meaning anything of it. So that's a good point
in a kart race, when you're racing a guy who you're clearly faster than, and he keeps getting in the way, and you're not allowed to play bumper cars, or you get kicked out of the daggum course that you just paid $60 to race on.
Yeah.
So you kind of take it easy, and then you get out, you're like, man, I could have run 2 seconds faster a lap if you were not in front of me.
Yeah, and then I'm sitting here saying, well, you should have passed me then. What happened?
Well, next time I'm going to dump you.
We're talking about this time.
I'm just going to take the flat. I'm going to get the guy mad, the guy refereeing the deal. He's just going to be mad at me.
Yeah, you're going to give him $5 before the race starts, says, close your eyes.
Right. And the perspective y'all need is, and we may have discussed this before way back in the early version of the podcast when we first got started. We went to Victory Lane in Charlotte. Mm-hmm. We just went up to Charlotte just to have a good time, and we were actually met Chris Canis there one night for some drinks. And shout out, buddy.
Yeah, cheers again.
We decided that one of the things we wanted to do while we were there was go to this Victory Lane karting where we knew guys like Jeff Gordon and AJ Allmendinger and Scott Speed went to go hone up on their turning right and turning left skills. And they're just having fun and laying down ridiculous laps against this course. I'm pretty sure Jeff Gordon's time was 9 seconds better than me. And then this is a long course. It's a 40. If you're really good, it was a 46-second course. If you're a NASCAR driver, it's a 42-second course. I was running 48s. Yeah. And I lost it coming into the fastest corner. I had to chase it up against the wall, and Rusty was close enough to me and hit the line well enough that he hit me harder than I've ever been hit. I've been in 2 automobile crashes in my life. Neither one of them were severe, but we were in go-karts, and that's the heart. He went straight into my side because I took his line away while I was chasing the car up the hill. It's not up the hill. It was sideways to the left. Yeah. But I wasn't going to hit the wall until he ran into me. So I went bang, bang.
And Sherwin spun the tires a little bit. Yeah, he screeched the tires a little bit, which in these go-karts is the same as just dropping an anchor. So I'm behind him maybe 15, 20 feet. He drops an anchor. I've got nowhere to go. And I remember yelling a cuss word into my helmet because there was nothing to do but brace yourself. And I hit him T-bone. I was going probably 45 because I was wide open at that point trying to pass him, and I was just going to what my play was one of those just use him as the wall and bounce off. But yeah. I ended up using him as the T-bone wall, and we were in a nasty wreck. The guy that was running the race looked over, and he was going, oh. So,
yeah, I had to shake the cobwebs. I sat there for 2 seconds and go, that was the hardest hit I've ever taken.
Yeah.
And then I make kind of eye contact with the referee guy, and he's like, you good? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, your adrenaline's all pumped up, but I don't think I've ever even been punched that hard.
I've only been punched once. Only the one time I got sucker punched at Teak when I had a black eye and everything. It was cute.
So that takes
I
us.
hit him harder.
That takes us to next week to Dega, the great roll of the dice, the spin of the wheel. Where we're looking at.
It's the slot machine of racing.
Yep.
I mean, the odds are better than the slot machine, but not enough to say it's better. Like, if you qualify up front, which means you have a good aero package, good on you. Doesn't matter when there's 30 cars behind you. It all changes.
Yeah, and me and you were talking.
It's all about motor, really.
Me and you were talking in the pre-race, like we're racing, in the pre-show. Dale Jr. and Matt Kenseth are both in positions where they must win. Ryan Newman is... Newman. Ryan Newman, Kyle Busch, Truex, Keselowski, Gordon, and Harvick. Shooting all these people as I'm looking through here. But all those guys are in a must-not-wreck situation. So it's an interesting dichotomy there. If you're going for the win, if you're going for the, again, must not wreck, must not be in the big one in order to move on type of deal. So the question is, can Junior, I think the way you put it, can he hit the walk-off at his best track? Can Kenseth do something surprising because he's got to win? And can these other guys stay out of the big one?
Yes is the answer to all those questions, but no is also the answer to all of those questions. Mm-hmm. And that's how you know that it's a total, put your quarter in a slot and ka-ching. And, you hope your guy ends up with 777s because otherwise, there's such a good chance that – and I actually talked about this today with some other guys, some other very smart people, NASCAR fans. I said, look, if you go back to 20, and did we segue? I might segue here.
Go ahead.
If we talk about, Marty Smith wrote a great period piece about Dale Earnhardt winning his last race 15 years ago, this race. And they sold a box set at Walmart that I bought. I just happened to have that entire race on DVD where Earnhardt came from the back in 18th position, but he had to pass all the cars that were still running. Was 18th position because he was the lead lap after a crappy pit stop. And he and Kenny Wallace hooked up and they went to the front in like 10 laps, which is, if that DVD is worth owning just for that. It's so cool. And to hear the guy, Benny Parsons and Jerry Punch and Ned Jarrett call that thing was crazy.
Cool. I just got goosebumps. I love those three names. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and you should, and you're going to have to help me pull this back around, but, like, this race is – oh, shoot. We just had the internet unstable thing again. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I got you. You're all right. Keep rolling.
Okay, so you're hearing me, but I'm struggling with you. Anywho, the whole point of that is that, like, this is a legendary race in a lot of ways. Like, the whole Winston branding thing is gone, but – If Dale Jr. is able to win this thing, with lessons learned from his father, which is totally true because his father won 10 races there and taught him everything he knew about the way the wind feels. If Dale Jr. is able to walk off, that's like about the best thing that could happen in NASCAR.
Oh, no kidding. I mean, we talk about when hell parties, it raises Clint Boyer. When hell parties this time, it will raise Junior Nation.
You know who will be partying at Dale Jr.'s, probably in his tree house if he wins? Clint Boyer.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, for sure. You mentioned that Marty Smith piece, and I think it's worth telling the folks here, and maybe we'll try to retweet this out or something. That was a great piece on Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s last win there, like you already said, but it's worth repeating and worth taking pause to tell the folks to go read that, or go take a look at that. That was great. So we had another classic PETM technical difficulty there, but I shouldn't announce those all the time because the folks on the who are listening actually won't even notice because I'm just going to edit the part out where we were just trying to figure each other out, like, Sherwin, can you hear me? So,
yeah, true. You talked about the fourth wall. I think we certainly aren't professionals yet. We'll get there, but I don't know that it's almost kind of funny to me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Especially when I listen to it later.
So what I was going to get at, we were just talking about Dega, and we were trying to close it out. What is your strategy for two things? And I've already sort of talked about them, but if your strategy is Dale Jr. or Kenseth, who has to win, what's your strategy for them? And what's your strategy for the guys who I said can't crash?
Lead every lap.
So that's for everybody, or just for the guys who? Where do you mean on that? For both those groups, or for both, or for just the leader, or the guys who have to win, or the guys who can't crash out?
I think it applies to everybody that wants to finish well at Talladega. If you want to have a good race, I think your plan going in needs to be lead every lap.
And we
knowing
saw
that that's basically impossible, but if you can run in the top 6 all day long, there's a strong chance, unless you're running directly in front of Kyle Busch, that you're not going to wreck.
Yeah. And we've seen some sandbagging before, and we've seen it fail miserably. I think Jimmy Johnson did it, was it 3 years ago? And I think it was at Dega, and he sort of sat back in the back, ended up getting caught up in a wreck with some of the folks in the back, and then his day was over. So I don't think the sandbagging thing has been proven, and especially the guys who kind of hang out in the back for the first whatever and try to avoid the big one. Newman. So I agree with you. I think and that's what I was going to say. I didn't want to mess up your judgment there, but I think all these guys, you just got to be mat down and go for the win.
Well, the thing I got distracted because I got excited about talking about Dale Earnhardt, but the thing I wanted to tie that back in today's racing was, if you go back and you watch that race, you watch those last 10 laps, or you watch the whole race, either way, however much attention span you have, what you'll see is that those cars were like, even though they were stacked two wide, 20 deep, they were 12, 18 feet apart running in those packs. Today, we got these guys running 2 or 3 feet apart. There's nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't go anywhere. There's only 2 or 3. Sometimes there's 3 lines that open up at Dega, but then you end up with 10 deep, 3 wide, and there's still no place to go, especially now with the advent of the yellow line, the double yellow line rule. And there's nowhere to put your car. It doesn't matter if you get a run. There's nowhere to put your car. And NASCAR's got to figure out a way to get these cars farther apart. And I don't know. I think that's aero and motor. But I think if NASCAR could recreate a race like the 20 or the 2000 Winston 500 that Dale won from last, they gold mine, and that's it's a hard thing to shoot for to happen every time. But the reason why he was able to do it is because the cars weren't packed right up against each other.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't bump drafting all over every part of the racetrack because, in order to bump draft, you had to get a weird run and you hit the guy, and then he went out like 20 feet.
Yeah. So that brings us to our picks, and you know what happens when we got to take our picks.
Oh, yeah.
Start your engine!
There he is. So I think, yes, you won last week picking the winner. By the way, congrats on picking the winner. I think I've been too bitter to not give you the props on that. So props on picking the winner. Congratulations. Go to hell. But it was it was a great pick. We both had good picks. Yours turned out a little bit better. So I think you're first up to pick.
I'm first up to pick, and I'm going to go off script a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll surprise you with this pick or not, but this is a guy that's won a race at Talladega that quietly, typically, 2 adverbs in a row, has a really good race at Talladega. So I'm going with Denny Hamlin.
It's a really good pick. He's on the right team with Gibbs to make waves. He's not in a has-to-win situation, and I'm not even really putting him in a must-not-crash situation. Of course, you don't want to be 43rd or something, but I think he's safely in the chase. He's got some breathing room. He's 13 points behind Joey. And he's, let me see if I take a look out of 10th place. I mean, he's 20 ahead of 10th, so he's got to finish not 20 behind every other guy between 2nd and 10th, if I got my math right there. So I think he's comfortably in, and I think that's a good pick because of that. He can go after it, just like Joey Logano just did. So I think that's a really good pick. My pick, since I've got to go with Dale Jr. I've got to go for the. I had it at one point with Kevin Harvick, and I said he's in a must-win situation, and he's clutch about that. This is Dale Earnhardt's track. This is his time to do it. Everything points to everybody's going to be watching him. So whether he wins or gets close or whatever, I think all the eyeballs are on him, and it's his race to lose as opposed to all these other guys. I think it's their race to win at this point.
Oh, I totally agree with you, and of course I wanted to pick Earnhardt.
You left the door open for him.
Off script to make it more entertaining, especially since the regular listeners know that I'm not a Denny Hamlin fan, but I want to prove to you that I recognize the skill by picking someone that I don't like and I regularly root against, because I think that'll make it more fun. I think Junior solidifies his position as a Hall of Famer without even having a championship if he wins this race.
Oh, for sure. And not just solidifies, but I mean exclamation point on it for that matter. So, man, let's start bringing it down, tearing it down.
Yeah, we're tearing it down. Wow, we need to have some kind of crazy, like one of those forklift truck things where the whole factory falls down. If we can get some audio on that,
I've got some.
You know what? I think we have some very funny audio for y'all. I hope that anybody that downloads this podcast this week was watching the Monday Night Football show.
Oh, yeah.
I think we have something funny for you.
Here it goes. That's fantastic.
So, I mean, it took us 22 shows in to get to fart jokes, but there's nothing funnier than farting. I know this because my 67-year-old dad still thinks it's the funniest thing that's ever happened on Earth. And how about Mike Ditka ripping a granddaddy fart on the set of Monday Night Football pre-show?
I'm only disappointed that he didn't own it. He's come out and tried to say, "Oh, that's not me," but it was totally him. And even, you know what? Even as I've been thinking about it since we started the pre-show, even if it wasn't his, he can be legendary by claiming it. Even that's the one time where you can be legendary by claiming a fart that's not yours, even if it was or wasn't.
Right. Well, it totally understood the opportunity in front of him, which is not necessarily all that surprising for a 76-year-old. But look, you could own this from every perspective.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it was a fantastic fart is the first step. That's the first thing you can own is, damn, dude, you ripped some ass. Loud enough for microphones that are 20 feet away from you to catch it. I mean, I know they're wearing the necktie one, but that wasn't the one that picked. It was the background mic that picked that thing up. And number two, you're old. Just say, hey, I'm 76, and sometimes I've got a fart.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 33, and there's sometimes I got a fart, so I'm going to own it.
Right. I mean, we talk about these old guys on the set and how they just kind of, sometimes Ditka will just take a nap. Like, this is his chance to shine. Lee Corso said, F it, on the set of College Game Day. And I can't remember whose mascot he put on after that, but like, Kurt Herbstreit lost his mind.
Yes.
And all they said was, sorry.
Oh, well. That's look at me. I'm old. I can do that.
It actually drove ratings. People are waiting for him to say it again.
Yeah. So closing it out, sorta. Happy Back to the Future Day, man. I guess today is the day after, but it's
well, for
cool.
all those nerds out there, okay, and maybe I'll digress for a minute, but so are the people that really like movies like Back to the Future and Star Wars but aren't smart? What do we have a word for them?
Suckers.
Suckers. Okay. I was thinking like dweebs or something. I don't know.
I was thinking about the people.
We're not. It's not necessarily the point of calling people names, but we did have the Back to the Future thing. So if y'all aren't huge fans of kind of funny '80s movies, yesterday was the day that in Back to the Future Part 2 that Marty went to, where there was like hoverboards and automatic shoelaces and things we don't have. And people were bitching about that. The thing is, you know what we've got today, though?
What's that?
iPhone.
Yeah.
Which they couldn't dream up in 1985,
Which is kind of funny because we're sitting here periscoping and looking at each other and doing all this video conference that they did have, and they did have that big old flat screen TV and stuff.
Well, and they did have faxes in every room, which is the WTF moment.
Yeah, I was going to say the dweebs, as you're calling them, and the suckers, as I'm calling them, is the people paying $400 for a bottle of Pepsi online right now for those.
I totally said that.
Yeah.
I saw that on Facebook, and I've got a dweeby, nerdy friend, but he was smart. He's a George fan though, but I like him. and he had posted something like that. And I was like, "Is this this is not okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, but when they re-release it in 2 weeks, and I buy a couple of bottles for $20 and resell them for $400, that's not so bad." And I go, if that's the route you're taking, I can get behind that. That's entrepreneurism, and good on you.
Yeah, I'm. I work in a B2B business, so it's hard for me to think about those opportunities for consumer products like that and having the quick turnarounds. So I'll leave it to guys like that.
Same on that deal. So what I wanted to hit as an attachment to that I wrote in the show notes is, on Back to the Future, the car they used was a DeLorean, which. Mm-hmm. Was a pet project by John DeLorean, who came from Ford. I may be misspeaking. I hope I'm right.
Well, you're giving us some topics for next week, then, if you're not.
Yeah, it was either Ford or Dodge, and I know it's like, how could you confuse those two? Jeez. He was an executive at a big four auto manufacturer, and he started DeLorean on his own, and they only made like 9,000 of these DMC-12s. And I remember being like a teenager or maybe in my early 20s, my dad rents a property that the house that they originally built when they moved to the house I was born into. They had a tenant there for 15 years, and we hadn't lived in that house in over 30. But the guy was a DeLorean mechanic, which is different. And one day I drove by the house, and there was 3 DeLoreans parked in the driveway, and I was like, whoa.
That's cool as Christmas.
Different.
As I like to say. Yeah, that's neato. In this day and age, you'd have taken a picture and probably been famous on Instagram or something because nobody has 3 DeLoreans anywhere.
Oh, I would have selfied.
Right.
I would have selfied with 3 of them in there. And because the funny thing, that stoked my memory about it was I saw a meme online that had 5 DeLoreans parked in the yard of a crummy ranch house with a fence around it and said annual meeting of time travelers or something. I was like, well, wait a daggum minute. I've seen that for real in real life.
Yeah. So let's start closing it out. Last week we were talking about 5 in a row, and that was a streak with the Falcons, and they broke their streak, unfortunately for us as fans, to the New Orleans Saints. We talked about that part actually too. We've got another 5 in a row this week, as folks who are fans of the podcast know. We're both Georgia Tech fans and season ticket holders, and we go to all the home games. And we have now lost 5 in a row, which is new to us, a very humbling experience. And we're going up against the cupcake team of Florida State tomorrow. Or 2 days from now.
Well, I was 13 and you were 12 the last time that we lost 5 in a row. So. And we're both in our mid-30s now, so that kind of tells you that we haven't really experienced this as fans, not as adults for sure. Pretty tough challenge. This is kind of like a second-tier team trying to win at Talladega. It's possible, not super likely, but we will be there gassed up, and wearing white.
You got it. Gassed up because it's a 7 p.m. game for sure. So I think we'll close with that, man. We'll be happy now. We'll be rooting for our team. If we're in misery, then we'll have to deal with that at that point.
It won't be any misery that night.
But folks who are listening, thanks again for listening. As always, we love you to death. We love doing this, and I don't have any more fun in the week than when I'm sitting here, whether it's with you or on the phone or on the Periscope or whatever it is. We're having a blast. And once again, this is the PETM Podcast. Hey, give us a look on Twitter at PETM Podcast. I'm Tailgate Mayor at Tailgate Mayor. Sherwin, tell them who you are and the email address, the new email.
That's right. I'm Andrew Sherwin, and the pregame engineer Twitter is at pregameeng. We do have an email now hosted by Gmail. It's petmpodcast@gmail.com. That's all lowercase. I don't think it matters which case you We tootle around on Instagram a little bit, or at least I do. I haven't been very good about posting pictures, but we Periscope every week from the PETM Podcast Periscope handle. So please follow along whenever you can.
All right, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Thumbs up.